السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله، الحمد لله، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. It is an honor, a humbling privilege to have you here, the Khalil Center staff and clinicians here at ISNA Canada. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you, to reward you, and for all our viewers, may Allah accept your fasting. Ramadan is almost over, but inshallah, hopefully this is a preparation for the Khayr that is to come. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the best of our Ramadan, the last of our Ramadan, Ya Rab. Ameen, ameen. So, inshallah, we want to make this an informal conversation. And the purpose behind this is to introduce the Khalil Center to the community, introduce the work that the Khalil Center is doing, recognize the great work that you're doing, and also get to know you a little bit better, get to know the work that you're doing, and get to know the vision and the mission and the plan for what is to come, and just acquaint the viewers with the process of how to seek counseling, how the counseling is provided, and how we begin from A to Z, success, and how do we define success? Can we define success? Just getting into, inshallah, the behind the scenes, the source code behind the Khalil Center, inshallah. So we begin with your stories. We want to get to know you a little bit better. And inshallah, I'm going to put you on the spot. Whoever wishes to go first, inshallah, maybe Sister Sumaya, you can tell us your story. Why counseling? Why psychotherapy? And how's that journey been like for you?
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I guess it starts from way back when I was a child, I think. I had a sister who was very chronically ill. And so I think it all began with that simple thought of a child of wanting to be able to help others, because just seeing my sister, I think it made me feel very helpless. And so I think my first career choice was medicine, because of course there was a really big connection around that. Right. But Allahu Alam, I think I went through a lot of different opportunities of doing research first, and in all those things there was that hope and seeking of helping others, of knowing what others are going through. And I think it came down to me just figuring out that medicine was not for me. And so I did a lot of research, but also searching inwardly as well. And I came upon social work. So by background, I'm a social worker. And I think what spoke to me a lot was that human connection between two people. And I think from an Islamic perspective, that's so very important as well, right? That even the connection of being able to give a message, right? So alhamdulillah, and that's how I kind of came to social work and counseling in particular.
MashaAllah. The Prophet Muhammad he says, and this is a beautiful hadith, for you to go to try to help someone with whatever need they have is better than 30 days of i'tikaf in my masjid. And he was referring to the i'tikaf in the Prophet Muhammad's masjid. So that's 30 days times 1,000, because anything that you do in Masjid al-Nabawi or in Medina is equivalent to 1,000 outside Medina. So imagine 30,000 days of i'tikaf, which comes with prayer, which comes with fasting, which comes with recitation of the Quran. So the ajr of that, can you imagine? 30,000. You get all of that and more by trying, not even fulfilling, not even succeeding. It's just trying to help someone. So this is a big blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, there's a beautiful fulfillment that you get, knowing that this is your mission and your vision. And may Allah accept and empower you to continuously serve. Ya Rab, Ameen. What about your story, Shaykh Omar?
My story?
Yes.
So I was born and raised here in Toronto, and I wasn't very fond of home. I was very rebellious. I grew up troubled. Got in a lot of trouble early on in my life.
Doesn't look like it.
Alhamdulillah, it doesn't look like it anymore. I decided to go to a madrasa, boarding school, but that was my way of escaping from home.
Right.
So I started learning Islam, Arabic, Islamic studies, and then I left Canada to go study deeper, more thorough in the UK and South Africa. And when I came back, I didn't want to be an imam per se. I didn't want to lecture in a masjid. I didn't want to teach madrasa. that wasn't something that I felt was my calling. But I saw there was an immense need for the Muslim community, especially youth, that weren't affiliated or attached with the masjid, right? So particularly university and college students. And so this program opened up at Emmanuel College at U of T, and Muslim chaplaincy program.
Yeah.
And I said, subhanAllah, like if I can enroll in there, amazing, beautiful. So they accepted me and they recognized the bachelor's that I completed in South Africa. And so I enrolled into that master's program, worked with Ustad Amjad Tarsin with the Muslim chaplaincy, worked with them, served as an intern for a year at the U of T Scarborough campus. And then alhamdulillah, from there worked into a job. But I felt like that was my calling. And it was taking the masjid and the sources of barakah from the masjid onto the campus. And subhanAllah, a lot of people don't know, but UTSC has 3,000 Muslim students on campus.
Yeah.
So it's an entire community on its own. And bringing that sense of spirituality, but also being there for them. So when they're going through difficulties, whether it be, you know, anxiety surrounding exam, stress, whether it be family issues or relations, being kicked out of their houses and having them to transition onto campus housing, or going to even speak to their parents, being a liaison between administration and students, but just being there and caring for them, right? And with that, it's the integrating the spirituality aspect in as well, that I'm not just a counselor or a therapist, but I'm also a Muslim, I'm also an imam, I'm also a scholar, but I don't wear that hat on all the time.
Right.
So I think that was, I felt a calling to want to help others and serve others, because I felt like whoever was there helping me when I was growing up really had a tremendous impact on my life. And believe it or not, like one of the individuals who helped me most was a soccer coach, right? And just being there, listening, pushing me. You know, you have all the ability to do whatever you want, but you screw up so much. You know, if you channel that in a more positive direction, you can actually help people. You know that, right? I said, okay, I'll think about it. And I thought about it.
You remind me of the ayah, وَأَحْسِن كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ, and be good as Allah has been good to you. So Jazakallah khair for that. Sister Ambreen, sorry I cut you off earlier. May Allah bless you. Tell us about your story.
Yes, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for inviting us and having us here. Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey, I think, now having, 30 years of life, alhamdulillah. I think probably for me it was kind of going through my own mental health challenges of depression and anxiety and not being able to really understand what was going on. At that time, you don't really, when you're going through a trial, when you're in a trial, you don't really understand that, what, this might be depression, this is stress, this is anxiety, this is, psychosis, whatever it is. It wasn't until kind of reflecting on what I was experiencing and as I pursued my master's in psychology, really understanding like, okay, this is what was happening, that I was, going through depression. I had a lot of anxiety. It was self-destructive as well as destructive to others. And so just kind of going through that process and having a lot of going through inside and those internal processes, recognizing that, there is a need for support for people who do suffer through these challenges. And then just looking at certain parts in my life where I wish I had someone to talk to. So sometimes we can become really isolated. We can become silenced by, community or family or whatever it is. And it would have been nice to have somewhere to go, a safe place to go, to kind of, work through those challenges. So that's one, the internal kind of challenges that I had. And then I think just seeing other people suffering as well in different ways, whether it's abuse, whether it's, depression in different forms, whether it's trauma, just seeing that and then having that innate desire to take care and offer empathy, which is also a very, powerful quality that connects people. Just having that desire to be like, okay, if there's anything that I can do, it would be to offer empathy and help people kind of reach a place of safety. So that's kind of where my, alhamdulillah, that the story was. That's kind of what drove me. And I've been working in the community for the past, in the mental health field for about 4 or 5 years, and in the community for the past 2-3 years. So alhamdulillah, we're here. Khalil Center is an amazing space to be in, and really happy to be able to offer that.
How much are they paying you to say that? Of course, the Khalil
It's a
Center
good
is doing
question. Off records.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So the Khalil Center again is doing excellent work, connecting and reaching out to other organizations. That beautiful collaborative mindset, and we're humbled to be working with you to deliver this service to the community, to deliver the service to those who are in need. Now let me turn to you, Sheikh Omar, and tell me, before I get into TIP, Islamic integrated psychotherapy, I want to ask you, what do you love the most about the counseling, or what you do?
What I love most about the work that I do in psychotherapy and counseling is actually being there for individuals that are suffering or going through their challenges, and allowing them to rejuvenate a sense of hope within themselves, and leaving in a better situation than they came in.
MashaAllah.
So it's as if the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, right, that it's better for you to help someone than it is to have a red camel, right? So the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was always in the aid or in the service or in the nusra of other individuals, and so living in that prophetic example, right, in service to others, in service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in recognition of that you go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala walking, He comes to you running, right? And so if you're able to help somebody else on that path, go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by virtue of helping them stay alive, helping them recoup themselves, their strength, whether it be mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, being that source for them.
Absolutely,
right? So you're an agent of change in their life by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right.
I think that helps me feel fulfilled that, okay, I am not just, it's not a da'wah for me, but it's also a da'wah.
Allahu Akbar.
So,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I didn't want to do the traditional Islam of any khutbah, salah. It just wasn't for me. And so how can I serve others in a way where it's more meaningful for me and something that I feel is generating my calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Beautiful, beautiful. And subhanAllah, when you give back, it comes back in your life in many ways. I'm sure you can relate to that, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Allah fi awn al-abdi ma kana al-abdu fi awn akhi, that Allah will always come to the aid of someone who's at the aid of others. And I remember the story of one of the companions who the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave a mission to. And right before he went to deliver that or do the mission, he was feeling very anxious, very tired, very stressed out, very weak, very fatigued. And as soon as he started, he felt this immense energy. And then in the narration, he says that, subhanAllah, when you go to help someone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala empowers you. Like you have enough energy for whatever you have to do. So if you're just trying to take care of yourself, Allah will give you enough energy for you. But once you take that, I would say, responsibility, or you carry that, subhanAllah, that task of serving others, Allah empowers you with this immense energy. Can you relate to that, Sister Yasmin? Sumaya, Sister Sumaya?
Yeah, I think since, I think throughout my whole life, I think it's whenever I've had that opportunity to help someone, whether it's volunteering in the community or even pursuing social work, in order to seek that chance to be able to give back, I feel like I'm always, subhanAllah, being showered with Allah's mercy, and He's always giving back. And I think it's phenomenal that I get the opportunity even to work with Khalil Center, because I don't think I ever imagined I would be here helping people within Khalil Center from an Islamic perspective, and just being able to share that commonality as well. And so I feel like the more I'm moving forward and stepping forward to help our community, I feel like it's giving just as much back to me in terms of being able to see that fruition within the community, being able to see our clients flourish, alhamdulillah. And even in my personal life, of course, right? In all aspects, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And in this beautiful month of Ramadan, please don't forget to make dua for everyone who's serving, everyone working behind the scenes. whether it's our clinicians, whether it's the volunteers that are delivering those food packages to those that are in need, whether it's the sisters and brothers who are preparing the Eid gifts for the Eid drive. And once again, please tune into, inshallah, the Eid program that we have. We're starting at 6:15, inshallah, with the takbirat. The information is available online. But coming back to the Khalil Center and the partnership that we have with the Khalil Center, what is TIP? What is traditionally integrated psychotherapy, Islamically integrated psychotherapy? What is that? What does that mean?
So TIIP, Traditional Islamically Integrated Psychotherapy, is a modality that has been developed by Dr. Human Keshavarzi and the Khalil Center team. And so this modality isn't different or much different than what modern psychotherapeutic modalities suggest. For example, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a modality that incorporates the Islamic tradition within modern secular modalities. So for example, in Islamic psychotherapy, we recognize the usage of the ruh, the nafs, the jasad, the aql, and the qalb, right? Where in psychology or in psychotherapy, psychology is actually the study of the soul or something that's metaphysical. And so if you ask someone on the street today, what is psychology? They'll say the study of the mind or the brain. But it's actually not that. It's actually the study of the soul, something deeper than that, something that's really unknown or metaphysical that we're trying to explain. So it's going back within our tradition Islamically from sources of the Quran, ahadith, prophetic traditions, and extracting scenarios from the life of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran to be able to use that in an Islamic psychotherapeutic practice. So a lot of people say the father of psychology or modern day psychology is Sigmund Freud, right? And contrary to our Islamic tradition, we have a history of Islamic psychology within our own tradition, starting from Imam Abu Zayd al-Balkhi, who was a 9th century scholar who wrote a manual on pretty much what would be considered modern day CBT. It's translated, it was like a 75-page manuscript in classical Arabic where he would talk about different disorders, OCD, psychosis, and he would categorize them. And if you're Dr. Rania, who's also the clinical director at Khalil Center in the Bay Area, she did research at Stanford University with the Muslim Mental Health Lab. And she took the manuscript of Imam Abu Zayd al-Balkhi's Masali al-Anfus wal-Abdan, and she compared it with the DSM-5, which is the manual for psychiatric diagnosis. And she took his book, his manuscript, and she took the DSM, and verbatim, what's published in 2013 was actually published by Imam Abu Zayd al-Balkhi in the 9th century, Islamic scholar. So these extractions from Islam, from the Quranic verses, from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, discussion of what is tazkiyatun nafs, what is yu'allimuhumul kitab wa yuzakkihim, where does tazkiyah come into this form? Because we go to therapy to better ourselves, right? Develop a level of self-awareness, right? So there's a weak narration of the Prophet ﷺ where he mentioned, it's not as authentic as it wouldn't be narrated in Bukhari and Muslim, but it's a narration of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ where he mentions, if man aradallahu bihi khayran, that whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes good for, he gives him insight into his uyub, into his deficiencies. And so, which is what? Self-awareness. And to be able to recognize that and to be able to work on that to better ourselves psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physically as well. To be able to come closer and nurture a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is what TIIP is. So it's not negating the usage of modern day techniques. It's not saying, okay, we're only going to discuss spirituality, but it's a harmonization between the two.
Beautiful. And of course, the hadith, you can also connect it related to the ayah, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَذِيرًا, that the human being is the best at seeing him or his or her own reality, that we have to have that self-awareness. Exactly. And the insight.
It's بَصَّرَهُ بِعُيُوبِ نَفْسِهِ.
Exactly. So getting to the point of self-awareness and criticality where you can look back at your life and say, okay, I shouldn't be doing this, I should be doing that. SubhanAllah, may Allah bless you and give you Jannat for those. Tell me, what is it like now with the Khalil during the COVID situation? How are you getting, what is the access like? What is the wait time? How many clients? Just generally speaking, what has it been like the last couple of days with ISNA and with the COVID situation?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, like we've transferred a lot of our sessions, actually all of our sessions we're doing virtual therapy right now.
Excellent.
And it's been the same caseload, at least for me. So we were previously doing obviously in person case, face to face. And when the COVID situation broke out, we took it all online through like an encrypted, secure platform. There hasn't been many changes. Obviously, it's a lot more. You connect more in face-to-face therapy, but we've been, continuing to do virtual therapy, and clients have, continued to benefit from it. I think that the COVID situation presents like, different challenges in what people are experiencing. There's a lot of grief, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of panic, anxiety, and those are some of the issues that we continue to kind of help manage and help kind of alleviate during this time. Yeah.
And Sheikh Ala's always making the joke about husbands and wives.
Yes.
Marital counseling.
Yeah. I think that increased actually the
Yes.
the marital therapy. So.
MashaAllah.
So
So
we're trying.
if I'm at home going through a situation, how do I deem that situation worthy of counseling or requiring counseling? And if I do see it requiring counseling, what steps do I take? And what obstacles are going to be in the way for me to attain that service or retain that service from the Khalil? So walk me through that process.
Yeah, so I think we need to differentiate between mental health and mental disorder. They are linked, but sometimes we kind of are not able to see that mental disorders are actual disorders, illnesses that are codified in one way, that have certain identifiers of what they how they're presented in a person, right? A lot of what you see on like social media is really about like managing mental health, like self-care, setting boundaries, all that kind of stuff, which is all important, and it is part of managing a mental disorder as well. But there's, I think, we have to be able to differentiate between the two. I think it's difficult for people to do that on their own, which is why we ask you to come in for an assessment and call us, to talk to us how we can help you. And then we can kind of, work with you to determine whether, this is something that you can come in for, this is something that you can learn how to manage on your own. Anything that makes you dysfunctional, throughout your day, your life, depression has symptoms such as, lack of motivation, maybe you've been abusing drugs or unhealthy coping strategies, maybe you spend a lot of time in bed, or there's indicators of what a mental illness looks like. And sometimes you don't know what it is on your own, and that's why we're here to be like, hey, ask us, So I don't know if Omar wanted to add anything to that. Okay.
Yeah. So the process of accessing the Khalil through ISNA, how does that work? And tell us a little bit about the partnership with ISNA, and make sure you thank Islamic Relief.
So, alhamdulillah, a lot of thanks to Islamic Relief for being able to be the funding partner with this relationship. So I met Sheikh Osama a few years ago at the Muslim Mental Health Conference, and we developed a relationship there. And alhamdulillah, as he was onboarded at ISNA, it seemed as if his priority was giving back to the community the services that they deserve. So one thing that Khalil Center truly believes in is a collaborative care model. So clinicians working with imams, working with shuyukhs, working with the wider community, which is something that we are trying to develop and nurture in North America. And so the nature of this relationship is that let the imams do what they do best, right? So whether it's spiritual counseling, whether it is classes, teaching, preparation for lectures, and you're not going to take you're not going to go to the imam for medical advice, nor are you going to go to the imam for advice on how to renovate your bathroom. So why would you go to the imam about how to diagnose you with your mental health concern, or even to treat your mental health concern? I studied Islamic studies. I went to the traditional madrasa and seminary, and I can assure you that we were not trained in mental health or mental illness or even counseling for that matter. But it's as you graduate from the seminary or from the university, you're expected to become a counselor, you're expected to become a teacher, you're expected to become a lecturer, you're expected to become an individual that wears 100 hats.
Yeah.
Right? And it's difficult, it's draining.
Yeah.
So allowing us to formulate a type of relationship that lets us do what we do and specialize in, and lets the imam do what the imam specializes in. So, for example, the collaborative care model looks like you go to the imam, you discuss your issue and your challenge with them. The imam will say, okay, this doesn't have much to do with your spirituality. Yes, it does affect your spirituality. So let's talk about how it affects your spirituality. But what's the underlying issues that are going on? What's actually happening? What challenges are you facing? Why have you been facing those challenges? What are the relationships like with your family members, and so on and so forth? So let's take that discussion. Let's talk to Umbreen, or let's talk to a therapist from Khalil Center about it, and then you can come back and we can discuss the spiritual effects or implications surrounding that. So that is the nature of our relationship, and we actually had a first responders training program. So when an individual comes into the community, as we have, few thousand individuals here at the Islamic Center of Canada, they develop a relationship with you. They know who you are. They see your face. You communicate with them. You teach them. You educate them. So what happens then is they become extremely comfortable with the imam. They go to the imam to discuss, okay, this happened. My pet died. Or my wife, like my wife. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. My wife, right? And imam, you know what I'm talking about, right? So because they feel a sense of comfort with you.
Right.
So you are the first responder. The imams are the first responders. So how can a first responder or an imam be able to gauge a level of discomfort or different symptoms within the member of the congregation to be able to say, okay, I think we should talk to someone. I think, you know what, there's this resource that would be extremely helpful or beneficial to you. So providing as many resources as we can within the community for the community to be able to be there for them.
Yes. Beautiful. And subhanAllah, one of the things that happens with imams, because you're expected to do so much, sometimes it takes away from your ability to focus 100%. And keep the community moving forward. And that's one thing that we're trying to do here at ISNA. Keep the imams engaged where they can really excel. So education, creative, knowledge delivery, accessible information, and of course keeping that channel of communication open between the Khalil Center so that we're able to provide the counseling, we're able to approach the healing process holistically. So yes, here's how we can spiritually deal with it. Here's how we can, some of the habits, some of the things that we can even, some imams, very few, but some imams are trained, at least minimally in some form of counseling. So they can provide the basics. But then, you know what, you're going to go to the expert, you're going to, inshallah, get the service delivered, then come back, and then we can, continue following up and continue seeing other areas in your life where you grow. So the process now, let's say someone is sitting at home wanting and thinking, I want to access the service. What should they do?
So if they feel they want to access the services, they can go onto our website, or they can even go onto the ISNA website. The link for Khalil Center to book an appointment is there, it's present. So you would fill out a registration form just so that we have basic information about you, your name, your phone number, your email address, the reason why you're accessing services, why do you feel that you need to see a therapist or a counselor. And then we will get in contact with you and you will schedule an appointment with one of our therapists, either here at ISNA or in Toronto at our Khalil Center location. And a lot of individuals ask, okay, so what are the fees? Is it free? Is it covered by OHIP? Is the masjid paying for it? What's going on with the fees? So we have a model that is accessible to each and every one. So if you have private insurance, we bill your private insurance. Our standard session cost is $120 per session. So it's relatively lower than what you'd be paying outside to psychotherapy.
Usually 200.
Usually 200, $180 to $200.
Yeah, right.
So when Khalil Center opens up in any city, we gauge what is, the average cost of services, and then we try to at least implement 25% lower fees for the community at least.
Right.
So in Canada, it's about 30 to 35% lower.
Right.
And so with that being said, if you have private insurance, we charge full insurance $120. However, we have a sliding scale. And so that is basically determined on your family size, your family income. And for that to be determined on the sliding scale, anywhere between $60 to $120, we ask you for your notice of assessment, and we ask you to fill out a form to be able to be assessed on the sliding scale. And then beyond that, for individuals who can't even afford $60, whether you're in debt, whether you're zakat eligible, whether you are a student, whether you're an individual, a child at home or a youngster, and you don't want to tell your parents what the service is, and you have no money in your bank account, and you don't know how to pay for services, we have a financial assistance program. So at Khalil Center, we have a services over fees policy, which means no matter what you're going through, no matter how you're going through it, we will give you services over fees, and we will not charge you, or we will charge you a minimal amount, whether it be $5, $3, $10, whatever you can pay and you're comfortable with. And if it's zero, Bismillah, we have a program for that. So alhamdulillah, this is the process that we have. Average, our sessions go up to like 8 sessions. Our financial assistance program actually covers, it used to be 8, now it's
12.
Now it's 12. So if you fill out a financial assistance form, you're covered for up to 12 sessions.
Excellent, excellent. MashaAllah, that's wonderful work. May Allah bless you. And for those of us who are watching at home who wish to donate or support the project, how could they do that, especially in Ramadan?
So you can follow us on our Instagram page, our social media handles at Khalil Center Canada, Twitter at Khalil Center Ken, and we have our website. You can visit us at www.khalilcenter.com/donate, or our Instagram bio and Twitter bio has our Launch Good campaign. I believe there's a few days left for our Launch Good campaign, and we are a zakat eligible charity. We are a registered charity within the government of Canada, and we're also a registered 501c in the university in the United States of America University. United States of America. So alhamdulillah, there are ways that you can donate. You can send an e-transfer to us, and all that information is online, inshallah.
And that is tax deductible as well?
Tax deductible, yes.
Perfect, perfect. And you can also contribute directly through ISNA, because we do have, alhamdulillah, partnership with the Khalil. So you can contribute directly to ISNA, you can contribute directly to the Khalil Center. And of course, this service is not going to be possible without your support. And it's alhamdulillah, one of the most beautiful things about this is the future, the vision in 20 years. And inshallah, hopefully at the end of the conversation, we can come back to what the service would look like in 20 years. But for now, what about the people who cannot access the service? Let's say the stigma that's still in the minds of many. What advice do you have, for example, if someone has a grandfather who's like, you know what, and this may sound a little bit, insensitive, but it exists in the community. We have to be realistic. Some people say, for example, Habibi, I've been alive for 80 years, so have been, my ancestors for thousands of years, and we've never went to see counseling or see, a clinician. Just deal with it. There's no need for, this oversensitivity. You're equipped with what you need to handle things on your own. You don't need that extra ear, or you don't need the extra someone to listen to you, or just deal with it. Go make some dua. Go pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put your head, do some sujood, do some dhikr. Something is wrong with your iman. That's where you need to heal. So for the stigma that's still existing in the minds of some, and the barriers and the assumptions, sometimes false, sometimes partially misinformed, what advice do you have for someone who's in that situation?
So I think it begins with having a conversation around why is it that people are thinking that, in the sense of like, why do I need to go to a clinician or a therapist for my issues? And the one thing that pops into my head, an analogy, is that if, for example, you have a broken foot, or you fall during a sports event or whatever, at home even, and you fracture your leg. You don't wait, or you don't hope, or you don't stay at home in order for that foot or leg to heal, right? You access services, you seek help for that physical condition. Similarly, I think what we have for mental health is that there's stigma around it, but we need to also be aware that it's very real and it exists. And so just like when you go to a doctor for a physical ailment, something concerning your own mental or psychological well-being, it's important to access those services as well. Now, I think from a generational perspective, when we're talking about, you know, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, or even our parents as well, I think what's missing is that sense of knowing that there was a community or a very close-knit community. I think it's also the fact that we've always sought advice from our elders. And I think it's also important to know that where we are right now, even from a Western perspective, our communities are very closed off. And not to say that our community doesn't come together. We are very individual families. If you go back home into India or Pakistan or even in other places within the villages, everybody knows everybody. And you feel comfortable being able to seek that help. And I think it goes back to even during the Prophet ﷺ's time, in that Sahabas and people of the time still sought help, still sought advice for what they were going through or how to manage certain issues. And I think this is no different. It's just now, because we're so siloed in terms of our smaller communities, we need services like this because we don't have elders to go to sometimes. We don't have that support or someone who might be able to give us that advice that is going to help us manage psychologically, but also spiritually and even physically. And because I think they're all interrelated, right? And mental health impacts all of these things, especially our spirituality and vice versa.
But I don't want to see us shrink. And that's one of the
word shrink itself is so shrink.
Yeah, there's a stigma. I think it really has to do with education as well. Is people's I think there's gaps in that. I think what's presented in terms of what mental illness is and what mental health is really like distorted. And you were made to feel wrong, to feel that way. And I think that's how our families and our communities have traditionally, or not traditionally, in modern times been treating mental illness. And I think as Omar mentioned earlier, is that we didn't have that in our tradition. You know, people did seek out help from the Prophet ﷺ, and he advised them based on their capacities, their abilities, their awareness, their understanding. So we're trying to bring that back. And really it starts with education and recognizing that, hey, like, it's okay for me to ask help. It's okay for me to feel wrong, feel bad, or it's okay for me to be depressed. It's okay for me to feel anxiety. It's just about how do I manage and how do I learn to overcome this challenge, right? So
it's interesting because, you know, as someone who's serving as an imam and also youth counselor, being in those two worlds, we're always hearing imams, and even, you know, in khutbahs you'll hear this being said: إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله. When you ask, turn to Allah, and when you seek help through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Allah. So you want to always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the primary, primary focus, the primary goal.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean you don't turn to agents and means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in your life that can enhance and strengthen and help your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala form. And of course, you know, when someone is mentally in an optimal state of health, that person's soul is also more likely to thrive.
That's right.
If I'm not sleeping, the Prophet ﷺ, he told the companions who said, you know what, Ya Rasulullah, I'm going to come, I'm going to fast all day, and I'm going to sleep, I'm going to do qiyam all night. And he says, no, وَلِبَدْنِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا. Your body has a right upon you. And by extension, your soul, your mind, your health has a right upon you.
That's right.
And you're going to be held accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some ulama actually historically, like as old as Al-Balkhi and even before, they said that to seek help for anything that prevents you from optimizing your ibadah is not just a recommendation, it's necessary. And to not do so is actually a sin. So imagine ulama, you know, as even Balkhi and even earlier have mentioned that. Ibn Kathir has mentioned that. Al-Tabari has mentioned that. That you have to always do the best that you can with what you have to enhance and to set yourself up for success with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't see this as you being kind of like, my iman is so weak that I'm not able to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's no. you want to strengthen and you want to enhance your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're seeking experts, right? The expert opinion. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Consult with the scholars, with the people of knowledge, whether it's with the Quran, if you're looking for Quran, or by extension anything else, if you're looking for that when you don't know, when you're struggling, when you're worried or confused.
Yeah, and sorry, one thing I'd like to say, just to kind of answer one of the previous questions that you asked, was, our goal in life is to gain proximity to Allah, gain closeness to Allah. When that, and that is going to be impacted by your psychological, your mental, and your emotional health, right? And oftentimes we see trials and tribulations as being outwardly like external, but these are trials and tribulations that come from within. Right. The internal barriers, the internal challenges that we have, and that's why it's so important for you to seek out therapy and seek out a counselor, seek out somebody, a mentor that can help you access those parts and help you overcome those challenges. You may not know or may not have the capacity to do that on your own, right? And if our goal is to become closer to Allah in life, recognize that any dysfunction in your emotional, psychological health is going to be a barrier. It's going to be a challenge. I know when I was going through, my own depression, my own kind of, challenges, I was very distant from Allah, right? And it limits your prayer, your ibadah, your closeness, your relationship with God, your relationship with others. So that's why I feel, when you look at it from like an Islamic context, Islamic point of view, this is what we're trying to get at, is that we don't want these to be the barriers and the challenges that you have to deal with on your own. Right. There is a way, there is an outlet, there is a way out of it, right? Or to at least overcome these challenges.
Now let me get a little controversial.
Okay.
You're trying to bridge between two very unique worlds with some overlap, but you can't deny that there are very contradictory assumptions within both. So you have, for example, the clinicians who are going to say, what you guys are doing, that's not science. You're going way beyond. What do you mean? Like I'm a heavy empiricist. I'm a naturalistic. Or I have my focus is philosophical naturalism. I don't believe in that which is, not perceptible. You're talking about soul in psychology and a modern counseling and therapy. That's very strange, right? So you're going to be criticized for not being scientific enough from some members within the community. Maybe a few. And then you're also going to be criticized by some members within the Muslim community for not being Islamic enough. They're going to call into question, like, what Islamic training do you have? What Islamic, that the Islamic side of Islamic integrated or traditionally integrated Islamic psychotherapy, how Islamic is that? Based on what are the sources, what are the resources, what is the traditional aspect of that? So how do you navigate between those two criticisms that are going to come, and what's your response, and what's your goal like to build that harmonious union between those two that at the same time maintains the identity of each while forming an identity for itself that will do what it should be doing for the community, the Muslim community, in terms of providing the holistic healing?
So this goes back to TIIP,
right.
Traditional Islamically Integrated Psychotherapy. If you look at the Khalil-centered model within itself, the Khalil-centered model is a model where it has an individual who is dually trained, who's trained in the Islamic sciences as well as psychology or psychotherapy, to be able to head the clinic or head the region. So in Chicago, it's Dr. Human Keshavarzi, right? And the president there is Mona Bilal Ali Ansari, who's president of the board. In the Bay Area, you have Dr. Rani Awad, who has multiple ijazat. She's trained traditionally in Islamic sciences, but then she's also a medical practitioner and a psychiatrist. In Toronto, been humbled and blessed to be in this position where I manage the clinic, but I was also dually trained. So now the training starts at the top and then it goes from top bottom. So with TIIP, just like any other modality or any other practice of psychotherapy, requires supervision, requires advanced study, requires tiers of study. So in TIIP, there's a 3-level or 3-tier system. So level 1 is the beginning or introduction to TIIP. What does TIIP look like? And we go through hours upon hours of learning the TIIP model of service to the community. The second level is the advanced level. And then the third level is 30 hours of supervised practice with an individual who is accredited or certified in TIIP, which is also recognized by the Islamic of their sciences, masters of psychology, masters of Islamic studies, being able to harmonize the two from sources. And if there are any holes or deficiencies, it's an ever growing product or module that continues to evolve over time. Right? So there's a book that has just been published by Khalil Center, Dr. Fahd Khan, Dr. Human Kishavarzi, on traditional Islamically integrated psychotherapy, which has been evolved from Islamically integrated psychotherapy, right? Because that wasn't Islamic enough.
Right.
So now it's traditional Islamically integrated psychotherapy.
Right.
So it's ever evolving.
Ongoing process.
100%. And as we see it, we would like all the Khalil Center staff to not just practice psychotherapy, not just come into the office, but it's been mandated as part of their contract to continue Islamic education, formal Islamic education, because we do not want to give anything that we don't have, right? So you can't pour from a vessel that's empty, right? So you need to fill your vessel, whether it be with sound religious knowledge, and give that off to the client, or at least have that as a framework that you're able to use when it comes in session. For example, if a client asks you, so how does this affect my nafs? Or how is my nafs affected by this? Or you have individuals that come to you, especially youngsters, that used to come to me and they used to say, I pray. I'm trying so hard and I'm praying, but I just don't get that feeling. Because we care about feelings. We want to feel something. We want to feel good. We want to feel that, I'm establishing a relationship with Allah. Like I'm doing so much for Allah, but how come Allah is not giving me that feeling of you're good, you're okay, got you, type of thing. So we care about those feelings. So now harmonizing the two. So it's extremely important for our service providers to be able to have a sound religious background, as well as a sound psychotherapeutic background. And then TIIP allows us to take both of those, harmonizes it with the training plus supervision.
Beautiful. So let's say I'm listening now. I'm sitting at home, and I'm pursuing psychology. I'm doing my master's in counseling, or I'm doing some form of training in the field. What are ways that I can get involved with the Khalil Center?
So we do have internship programs. We have undergraduate internships. We also have graduate level internships. Graduate level internships is what our focus is generally upon. Sumaya is a graduate level intern at Khalil Center from her Master's of Social Work program.
Where are you studying, by the way, Sumaya?
UFT.
UFT as well?
No,
Okay.
I went at Yorkville University.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I did UFT.
Yeah, so 3 UFTs, mashallah, mainly, and Yorkville, mashallah. Excellent. Yeah.
Where was I? So our graduate level interns.
Yeah.
So we try to keep a few in each office to be able to provide services to the community, but also generate a lot of outreach for the community. So Sumaya this year headed a campaign which was geared to Islamic schools. So we went to different Islamic schools across the GTA, discussed mental health, discussed Islamically integrated psychotherapy, depression, anxiety, did a few case studies and exercises with them. Generate an interest, but also educate the younger population. So that was their goal this year. Inshallah, next year, a different goal.
Yeah. And here, I'm going to plug in Isna a little bit, but
yes,
one of the things that we are focusing on also is empowering those who are delivering programming and service to the community. So we want to also be involved in the process of bettering the service that you are delivering and you're performing. So this is a publicly now, a public promise to you that whatever resources you would wish, any of those, again, areas of gaps that wish to be fulfilled or filled, reach out to us, inshallah. And that includes education. We want to be able to invest in the education of our counselors, our therapists, and improve your lifestyle and your ability to deliver, so that, because so many people rely on you. So we want to be able to, again, empower those who are empowering others and serving those who serve others, inshallah. That's one of the visions and the missions here, Isna. We're trying to be, again, get in with the times, subhanAllah. Which takes me to another point, and that is, what advice do you have for someone who is considering going down that path, becoming a counselor? Let's say I'm just graduating here, Isna. I'm graduating from high school, and I'm applying. Some people are saying, just go for medicine, do law, just do teaching, and then a few others are saying, do counseling. What is that like? Is it difficult? How do you deal with it in terms of the burden? What are the challenges?
Find a different profession.
Find a different profession.
No, don't do that. Alhamdulillah, it's a very rewarding profession.
Yeah.
I really think that for anybody who's a recent grad, really. A lot of psychotherapy and stuff, you have to be very introspective. Okay, so it's not just about you giving advice and you counseling other people, but also your own experience, which I think is once you're able to introspect, reflect, understand, conceptualize where you are in life, where you are in your relationship with Allah, relationship with others, that in itself is empowering and be able to, puts you in a space and place to support others and help others, right? So start with that, really, is where are you at when it comes to your emotional well-being? Where are you at when it comes to your relationships with others? What's your character like? And I think that's a huge part of Islamically integrated psychotherapy. I know when we do our trainings, that's something that's drilled down in our head, is like, this is not for your clients, this is for you first, right? So this is whatever you're learning here, apply to yourself first before you bring it into sessions, before you are guiding other people to it, So, and I think that's the essence, and that's what actually sometimes differentiates us from that modern and secular psychology, is that in there it's like you could be somebody, and addicted to pornography or drinking and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to sessions, you can help people still support and support people out of that. Within an Islamic context, we don't have that. Yep. And that's why it's so important that as you kind of move into this field, which is going to be a growing field for the next 30, 40 years, is you are in a constant purification of your own self. And as you go through that process, you can help others and support others in doing that as well.
It's a journey.
Yes, it is. It really
if you genuinely care about other people and you genuinely care about helping others and wanting others to achieve their optimal best, then this profession or this calling would be for you. Right? And I think for many of us, we have to understand that it doesn't end. So the session isn't just 1 hour long or 45 minutes long. Right. You take it home with you. So you take home the care with you. You take home the checking in with you. You take home, for us, like when we were taught, Islamically, that when an individual or you have students, take them back home with you in terms of make dua for them. Yes, continue to pray for them. Continue to support them. Continue to show care for them or to them. And so wake up in the middle of the night, make dua for them, pray for them, pray for their well-being. So that is the difference between Islamically integrated psychotherapy versus just traditional psychotherapy. Whereas you, again, وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. You want to seek Allah's help and traditionally from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but make that your focus point. And that's what we ingrain in our patients as well, that yes, you're coming to talk to me about it, but let's not forget our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought us and how far He's brought us along this journey. Whether we be with clients for months, years, weeks, it's something that we constantly remind ourselves and remind our patients, okay, you know what? We've been together for 6-7 months now, subhanAllah. Look where we were, in October. Look where we were in August last year. And a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot, not just for you, for me too. And you develop a sincere type of relationship with your patients, with the individuals that you're working with, because you've been introduced to not just their strengths, not just their vulnerabilities, but every single deep emotion embedded within them. So it's a very sacred space when it comes to the counseling session or the therapeutic session.
Absolutely.
It's not just therapeutic for them, but it's therapeutic for yourself as well.
Yes.
That when you leave that space, you're like, subhanallah, like, and you're grateful for what you have, what you're going through, for being able to be there for someone else, for Allah putting you in that situation that you're able to recognize, okay, I am in a good place, I am doing good. So there are success stories, there are stories of failure, right? And failure could be triggering for some people if we discuss that. But success stories are there. Where
Tell me some. Without mentioning specific cases, but just generally, how do you define success? How do you know that you've been effective in a counseling session, that you've reached that point where the person is empowered to tackle their challenges by themselves?
Yeah, very good question. So obviously we refrain from sharing any specific stories for obvious reasons of confidentiality and privacy. But you know, you're always doing check-ins with your clients and making sure that they are getting what they need from the therapeutic alliance or what they initially came in, the challenges that they presented, right? So you know, every 4 or 5 sessions, you want to do that. Hey, you know, is this working? Is this where you want to be? Where were you 3 months ago? Where were you a year ago? Is this where you want to be now? Are you okay with it? Are you content with that? Are you happy in the state that you are? Do we need to do more work, right? And that's when you get that feedback from your clients.
It's client specific.
It's client specific, yeah. And there have been times where, alhamdulillah, you know, you spend a year with a client and they're in a whole different situation, a whole different circumstance than they were when they started. You know, one of the things that's very important is that you don't actually have power over people.
Of course not.
That's one thing I think as clinicians we need to be aware of, is that you don't have power. You don't change and you don't transform people's lives. They do that through Allah and within, because it's in them, within themselves. You're helping guide that process. You're helping transform or helping them get to that process, right? And for some people they get there, but some people they have blockages or there's other challenges. And really as a clinician, you want to be able to gauge, like, you know, you meet the client where they're at. So you don't talk about the soul and the levels of the soul and the nafs and the levels of the nafs to a teenager. Like they're not going to perceive, like, you know, they're not going to be able to absorb that information. And unless and until they've gotten there, you know, if you've gotten them there. So you meet your clients, you know, where they're at. You help them transform in that or be able to facilitate that change themselves on their own. As you facilitate a lot of empathy and providing that space for them to move and change those emotions, right? To transform. So I don't know what was the question.
It's very easy to determine success and failure in marriage therapy, marriage counseling, couples. It's very direct. It's very open. That, okay, we're good. We're walking out with our hands held together, and we're okay. Alhamdulillah. And failure is extremely evident within that as well, right?
And actually, a good clinician, you should be able to tell your therapist if you're angry at your therapist.
Right.
And a good clinician will take that and be like, okay, let's talk about this anger. Where is it coming from? Where, you know, what can we do with it, right? And so it's really about providing that space for that person to express whatever it is in their heart, their mind, their soul, and being like, I can hold this for you. We can hold this together, and we can work with it.
Right. So if someone is looking for that safe space where they're able to express their raw feelings, their raw emotions, their raw thoughts, while at the same time knowing that if they need that Islamic traditional kind of, you know, ability to steer themselves towards that direction, they're able to also have that venue. It's kind of, you know, where the Khalil sits at, right?
Yes, that's right.
And that's very beautiful, because I imagine a lot of people in the community, especially young people, wish for that space. Especially if someone is going through an addiction, if someone is going through an identity crisis, if someone is, you know, navigating orientations or even impulses or thoughts or feelings or desires, that's a place that you can definitely look into.
So with that, we have a lot of data collection as well. Right. So on our intake form, we ask potential clients, patients, if you were to see if you were interested in receiving services, would you have received it from a non-Muslim provider over a Muslim provider? And over 75% would say no. They need a Muslim provider,
yes.
right? Does it help that your Muslim provider shares the same cultural background as you?
Yes.
Right. So we ask questions of this. We collect data, and a lot of individuals want Islamically integrated counseling as opposed to just general secular counseling. So over 50%. So for that, when we collect data from these individuals, we take it back to the community and say, look, these are community members that come to Khalil Center that want Islamically integrated psychotherapy and counseling because for them, they value the importance of it.
Right.
And when we're able to gauge as they exit or as they leave Khalil Center, that they were pleased with the services. Obviously, we have shortcomings. We don't have
we're human beings.
Multiple languages spoken at Khalil Center. So our hope is within the next 20 years, we have individuals who speak fluently. To speak a language is different than providing therapy in that language because therapy within itself is its own language.
It's a language, yes.
So
very technical language as well.
It's very technical, 100%. So we want to be at a place where we can provide services in multiple languages to different populations and different communities. We want to be at a place where, alhamdulillah, ISNA being the trailblazer Islamic center in Canada that started services with Khalil Center, we want to be at a place where we can start these types of services across multiple masajid, multiple communities. So not just Mississauga, but in the East End, in the West End, up north, right? To be able to provide Islamic mental health care to Muslim populations across the GTA and across Canada, inshallah.
Excellent. And again, if you have any questions for us, specifically here, ISNA for the Khalil Center, please don't hesitate to join. Please don't hesitate to comment. We are keeping track of the Facebook. Hassan, if there are any questions, you can let us know, inshallah. There are. Okay. So at this time, let's take a few questions, inshallah. What are some of those questions coming in? So that systematic, subtle, or explicit Islamophobia towards Muslims in the workforce, in their universities, in the schools, what services can the Khalil provide, or ISNA, what can we provide? We'll start with you, inshallah.
I'll let the sister speak on behalf.
Yeah, sure.
So the question, from what I understand, is the impacts of Islamophobia on one's mental health. Is that what?
Yeah, like what can someone do who's in that state?
Yeah, I think, discrimination, obviously racism, any sexism, any hate that you experience is going to cause mental and emotional challenges, 100%, right? Because it closes people off, it shuts people down, a lot of shame, right? A lot of fear. And those are the times when we are asking you to come seek help, talk to somebody. If you don't have somebody that you can, share that pain with, share that suffering with, come to Khalil Center so that we can help you develop those coping, develop those strategies or those skills to protect yourself, to stay safe, right? Especially in these type of cases, it's really about safety and ensuring that you're protected, your family's protected, and that you can go out without fearing any sort of backlash, whether it's from the community.
Nurturing a sense of resiliency as well.
Nurturing resiliency, nurturing hope, and of course it's based on individual cases, but that's kind of what I would.
So I think there are 3 dimensions to the way that one can cope with this. There's a psychological side, the emotional side, which they can reach out to the Khalil for. And there's also the religious side, because sometimes when I receive such heavy criticism and it causes me to question, like, maybe am I that person? Are we really, hateful? Are we terrorists? I get a lot of teenagers asking that question. So if you have a question, Islamically speaking, you can reach out to us. And there's also the legal question, like what legal rights do I have in terms of fighting, getting my rights back? So you can reach out to CARE, or you can reach out to us. We can connect you with legal experts in the community that can help you, inshallah.
NCCM.
Take that back, an NCCM, yeah, if you're in the US or if you're in Canada. So being able to, again, find that place, and that's what we want to become now, it's in the future. If someone comes to me, I want to be able to assess, okay, there are 5 ways that we can approach this. Go to this person for that, go to this person for this. So we're providing that holistic
we don't need
encounter.
to reinvent the wheel. Alhamdulillah, a lot of organizations are doing immense work, and we should be able to have our resources.
Tap into that, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing about this era, inshallah. May Allah keep us sincere and united upon khair always.
Ameen.
What are other questions we have, Hassan? How can I prepare my children from an early age to share openly and honestly?
That's a really good question. Yeah. Can I answer that?
Yes,
Bismillah.
please do so. Yes.
I get it a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so it's interesting because Allah has entrusted, like, your children are an amana for you, right? And they're a gift from Allah. And you have to really look at what your role is as a parent in different stages of their life. As they grow, in their childhood years, they're fully dependent on you. You're guiding them, you're offering them support, you're taking care of them, you're providing them that safety. Yeah, that's your role as a parent. As they go into teen years, that becomes a little bit challenging, right? But then you have to change your approach and your role in how you deal with your teenager. That's your responsibility as a parent. And I think during teen years, which is something that we see quite often, is that parent-teen conflict, is just listen to your children. Just listen and talk to them about how they're feeling. Really ask your children, how are you feeling today? What are you really feeling? And do that with no judgment. Refrain from disciplining, or you're doing this wrong, or you're doing this right, which is a part of being a good parent.
Right.
But gauging when it's appropriate to do that and when it's not appropriate to do that. And honestly, I feel like if parents could take on the role of just listening, being empathetic, and being non-judgmental, they can really get into the internal worlds of their teenager, and they will come to you for help and support. Don't take away the agency of your children.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But how do you balance between, you have 2 duties. One is to guide that person to what's best,
Yes.
and also allow that person to be comfortable enough your child to be comfortable enough to share anything that is less ideal than that.
Yeah.
So how do you balance between being non-judgmental,
Yeah.
but at the same time being just lax? Because a lot of people, when they hear that, okay, non-judgmental, I see what you're saying,
Okay.
but does that mean that they just let my child do whatever he or she wants?
Yeah. I don't think so. I think you're taking a different approach. You do that. Your tarbiyah of the child up till 7, 8, 10 years that's what you're doing. You're guiding. You're telling them right, wrong, all that kind of stuff. The shift that happens in teenage years is that now they have independence. They have autonomy. They have the ability to think, and they're going to challenge you.
Right.
Now it becomes about you and how you take on that challenge.
Right.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Your role as a parent. How now you have to shift that role too. Is am I going to make this a part of my ego? Is this or can I sit down and listen to what my child has to say? And hopefully your tarbiyah, during those childhood years is flourishes in your teen years with the right, gentle guidance.
Right.
I do think that there's a lot of control. Sometimes that happens, but that approach does not work in teen years, unfortunately. I'll just put that out there. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Yeah. And the Prophet ﷺ was an expert at that.
Yes, exactly.
Guiding people, grooming people,
Yes.
Preparing them, setting them up for success.
Yes.
Excellent. So that's a beautiful resource that we have, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
I remember one professor actually came from Guelph University to do a lecture on parenting and child-parent relationships. And she sat beforehand with us to kind of, come up with Islamic content to integrate into her lecture. And then as we were having the conversation, she looks at us and she's like, "Are you serious? You guys have this stuff in your tradition?
Yeah.
Why is no one talking about this? Why aren't you? This is gold." SubhanAllah, sometimes the rich history and stories that we have, and the seerah of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, It's full of, and we can, share thousands of those stories. But that's what makes, this approach so unique and so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with compassion, with empathy. Be there, just listen, understand what is it that is concerning them. A lot of that anger and rebelliousness is coming from a space of, not having a place to talk to somebody about, and then finding other sources of support, which could be healthy and unhealthy.
Right.
I think education is the most proactive approach. We have a plethora of resources within Islam, within our ahadith, within our scriptures. Being able to access them or being able to share them or having conferences or conventions or workshops specifically targeting these topics makes it a proactive approach. And I think once it fails or once we didn't educate or once we used a disciplinary approach or a very lax approach in the beginning, and then once as parents we feel backlash as our kids are growing older, then it becomes an approach of, a reactionary approach. And what do I do now? Or how do I fix it? Well, let's be frank and honest with you. 10 years have gone by with this approach. It won't be fixed in one counseling session.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
true.
And individuals and families want instant results. And then they become unhappy because we can't give you that result. We can give you a placebo, but we can't give you.
And sometimes, like parents, we have this quite a lot as imams. Parents come and expect,
100%.
and they're very angry and they're very frustrated and they're so disappointed. And they sometimes displace that anger and they start venting and or start displacing it towards you, and you become, subhanallah, that subject of that anger. And you're looking back at it, you can't be doing this. And that anger is actually, it's not even about the doubts or the issues that are happening. The anger itself is what's causing your son or your daughter to really, really distant himself or herself from you.
Yeah.
So just reaching a point, even in your own development as a parent, of coming to terms, gaining that calm. I have my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I need to just take a step back and just really look into myself. So in many cases, when parents bring their kids for counseling, actually, subhanAllah, many cases, you're looking at the parents, you're like, actually, you need counseling sometimes
100%.
more than your own
100% usually.
Your own child. Let me book you a session.
I think one of the important things is that we have to remember that, like, with a parent-child relationship, you need to model that, what you want to see in your children. And oftentimes, kids pick up a lot of things that parents don't realize from a very young age. And so it's about really starting from two years old or even younger, right? And nourishing that close, safe, and secure relationship so that when they are in their teenage years and they are going to have those bouts and all that stuff, they still feel safe enough to be able to have that communication for you because you've modeled that safe and open communication for them from the get-go, right?
Yeah. And it's okay to be emotional. I feel sometimes our community can, I don't mean to generalize and stereotype, but sometimes the fathers are very distant emotionally, the mothers are unload their emotions on the children, and that can be challenging, right? So like I said, it's you play a role in taking care of that gift that Allah has blessed you with. And so you have to gauge, and a healthy parent is a healthy child, right? So just kind of talk about emotions, show empathy to each other, show love to your spouse, show love to your partner, and model that, like Samaya said, that they need to see that in order to be like, okay, this is okay. I can be vulnerable. I can talk to my parents about these things and not be shunned.
And it's okay to ask questions because I think that's how kids learn, right? And if you shut them down from the beginning or already tell them that the way you're thinking or what you're asking is wrong or you shouldn't, they're going to feel very hesitant to ask the next time they have maybe a very important question, and they may seek someone else other than you, right?
Just an anecdote or a story that I can share with you is that things that happen in childhood and your teenage years, they stick with you.
Right.
Especially between you and your parents. And I think we can all probably, relate to that, is that they really stick with you. And I've had clients who are in their 40s and in their 50s still grieving over trauma in their childhood and in their teen years. right? So it's not something like, it is very traumatizing if you're harming your children anyway. If you're abusing, that's haram in general. That's in many ways. And so just kind of provide, like, learning and understanding that you play a role, and that you are not the only one that has rights as a parent. Your children also have rights, and gaining an understanding of what those rights are, right? So usually it's like, your parents, you cannot say oof, you cannot, do that. And that it can be detrimental to a child's upbringing if that's the only thing that's focused on, right? Because children also deserve compassion and empathy and safety and love and good mannerisms and all that kind of stuff, right? Good tarbiyah, right?
You just reminded me of all the uncles and the aunties that bring their kids. Sheikh, I need you to do the halaqah tonight about how to be good to your mother.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
And that's part of our Islam. And nobody's saying that we shouldn't, but a part of it is also the way in which you treat your child.
And that's what the kids always say.
Yes.
Well, I want you to do the second halaqah about how to deal with your children.
Exactly.
So having that balance.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, holistic approach is great. Let's take one last question, inshallah, before we end. May Allah bless you and give you Jannat Firdaus. What can you do to encourage someone to fulfill their potential? That's the the over. Yeah, I'll open it, inshallah. What can you do to fulfill or help someone fulfill that potential? It's a big question.
Yeah.
It's like what you do.
Loaded question.
Every
it's a loaded
day.
question. Yeah. Thinking.
Yeah.
It's a very good question. Yeah.
What can you do to encourage someone to fully
fulfill that potential that they have within
potential.
themselves?
Mm-hmm.
You can advise them, and you have to recognize that you have limitations in your encouragement. Your encouragement can only go so far.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as you encourage someone, you can't force that upon them, because it may seem like it's good for you, but it may not necessarily be good for them and their story, their background, where they're coming from. So I think encouragement in Islam is a type of mashwara. It's a consultation, right? So you come to me and you ask me, what do you think I should do? And I encourage you, I think you should do this. I think this is your path. I think this is what you should take. And you take that back with you. You think about it, but you realize, okay, that's not the best option for me, because you weigh out the pros and cons. Again, encouragement is advice that's given to you. And it's up to you, the individual, where they take that encouragement, how far they want to take it, because it may necessarily not be beneficial for them. So it's up to the individual themselves to be able to make that decision. If you feel it's best for them, make dua for them. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens their heart.
Key,
and continue to pray for them. It's contrary to popular belief. It's best not to pester them. It's best not to, I'm just going to drill it home. And I think parents do this a lot with their children, right? I need you to become a doctor. Or you must become a lawyer. Or you got to do this, and don't bring anything less than a 4.0 GPA home, because you know what? Like, we are going to be disappointed with you. We haven't told you we love you for the past 15 years, but if you bring home a 3.9 GPA, we're going to tell you we're disappointed with you. And a lot of kids actually feel the grief from that. A lot of students, university students, college level students, within universities in the GTA, in the past year, there were 5 Muslim youngsters that committed suicide because of the immense pressure from this encouragement, or it comes off as discouragement. Right. So it's not done in the most effective way. Say it once, give your advice, bismillah, leave the rest up to Allah and that individual.
Right. And modeling behavior, I think, is key.
Yes.
If you want your child or anyone around you to really reach the best potential, they need to see other people around them that are successful, that are able to navigate that. For me, growing up, my parents, mashallah, they're very, very high achievers. So there's a lot of pressure. And I had my uncle, who on the other hand, he's extremely, mashallah, tabarakallah, very well established. But for him, he was always the one that I looked to for advice. Because he'd be like, your mom, it's okay. She's done this for me. She's always putting a lot of pressure. It's okay. It's fine. He was, on the other hand, the one who's, just taking me around, very interactive, just advice without even knowing it. Just walking together, interacting together. So moving away from that, okay, we're going to sit down across the table, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, it's more, let's go together. Let's go for walks.
Approach.
Exactly. Yeah, it goes a long way. And having, don't be the person in your child's relationship that is always saying do's and don'ts. You want to have other people around them that are that have less emotional investment and have more clarity and more distance from the relationship to be able to reinforce and to be able to guide and to be able to strengthen. So belonging to a community is key. Having a halaqah that you attend with your child. Some of the most successful children that I've seen are the ones where the parents themselves are saying, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to learn with you. Let's do this together.
Right, yeah.
So there's no power dynamics. No, I'm always right, you're wrong. Because your children will find you wrong more times than you can imagine. And they're very critical. So when they see that genuine human humility and readiness to grow, you're modeling that yourself, they're so much more likely to join and to be a part of that process of growth.
100%. And I feel like the discipline and the advice giving and that relational approach is best when it comes from people from outside, right? From coaches, from mentors, from tutors, from not from the parents, because the parents have to take upon an extra role then. So the parents need to invest in the child developing relationships or allowing their child to get out, play sports, be active within the community, go to the masjid, volunteer, spend some time with this sheikh, go over there for that halaqah, go for karate, taekwondo, engage yourself in different activities or engage your children in different activities so they have outlets to be able to talk to others, to be able to explore with others, to be able to build relationships with others. That's very important for them and their growing mind and body.
May Allah bless you.
Can I just add one quick thing? I think another part of it is us being able to see growth as being a process, because we always see it as, I'm going to set myself up to this expectation and I need to fulfill it in order to be successful, right? So even identifying that success is actually a process, and over that process, we do sometimes fail, and I use quotation marks because that may actually be something that you are required to have in order for you to grow and overcome some of those even boundaries you've set for yourself, to realize that, okay, wasn't able to do this, but maybe I can try something else, or I've learned something really crucial through this in order for me to kind of move forward. So I feel like even reaching potential requires us to sometimes kind of allow someone to figure out their own journey so they can fall, get back up, fall, and grow stronger through that as well.
Right. Sumaya, we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your time. May Allah bless your fasting, bless your qiyam, bless your ibadah. Sister Ambreen, again, we appreciate you being here. May Allah reward you for everything you do. May Allah reward you in ways that no human being can. Brother Umar, Sheikh Umar, may Allah bless you for being here. We appreciate your presence. Barakallah feekum. It's our honor to have you, and hopefully this is the beginning of more seminars, more interactive sessions. Let's empower the community together. Whatever it takes is our model, Sheikh Ala's model. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us sincere, to beautify and bless this relationship, and to allow us always to be where the community needs us to be, and to step up to deliver that excellent service with ihsan. For all of you who are watching, barakallah feekum, may Allah bless you and give you Jannat Firdaus, ya Rabb, ameen. Thank you for your dua, for your support. And again, we're here for you within the best of our means and within the capacity. So feel free to reach out to us through a private message on Facebook, Instagram. Feel free to reach out to the Khalid directly. Feel free to email us, and on the website isnacanada.com, if you go to the counseling section, you'll have the phone number through which you're able to directly connect with the Khalid, or you can just look them up online directly. And of course, our shuyukh are still providing that counseling, but within, again, the religious side, and we are, alhamdulillah, referring most of the cases, if not all the cases, that require, again, the psycho-spiritual and the professional help, or the professional support, to the Khalid Center. Jazakum khair for coming. May Allah bless you and give you Jannat Firdaus. Take the best and make the best out of the last nights of Ramadan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.